The swamps of Dagobah were silent except for the croaking of creatures in the mist. Yoda sat in his small hut, eyes closed, deep in meditation. 20 years had passed since the fall of the Jedi Order. 20 years since Palpatine's victory. 20 years of failure weighing on his ancient shoulders. Failed. I have, he whispered to the darkness. The galaxy. Lost it is. But then, the Force surged. A vision unlike any Yoda had ever experienced flooded his mind, not of the future, but of the past. He saw Darth Bane standing over the corpses of the ancient Sith, creating the rule of two. He saw generations of Sith lords hiding in shadows, manipulating galactic events. He saw Palpatine as a young man, being corrupted by Darth Plagueis. Every domino that led to the Empire's rise played out before him. Stop it. I could have, Yoda realized with crushing clarity. If known earlier, I had. Then the vision shifted. He saw an ancient Jedi temple on a forgotten world Ossus, lost during the Great Sith War thousands of years ago. Within its ruins lay a holocron, glowing with temporal energy, time manipulation. A forbidden Force technique, hidden away by the earliest Jedi Masters who feared its power. A second chance, Yoda whispered. The vision showed him the ritual, the cost, the danger. Tampering with time violated every natural law of the Force. It could fracture reality itself, but it could also prevent everything the Clone Wars, Order 66, the Empire, Vader, all of it could be unmade. Yoda opened his eyes, decision crystallizing. He had lived for 900 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. And now, in his final years, he had one last chance to save the galaxy. Not by fighting the Sith in the present, but by destroying them before they ever became a threat. Yoda rose from his meditation, his Geimer stick in hand. The journey to Ossus would be long and dangerous. But for the first time in 2 decades, hope burned in the ancient master's heart. He would travel back in time, and he would end the Sith forever, even if it cost him everything. The ruins of Ossus were as dead as the Jedi who once walked there. Yoda stood in the remains of the Great Library, holding the ancient holocron. Its glow pulsed with temporal energy, warning him of the danger ahead. Ready? I am, Yoda said, though doubt lingered in his heart. He activated the holocron. The ritual instructions flowed into his mind, a technique so dangerous, the ancient Jedi had forbidden its use. It required channeling the living Force through his entire being, creating a temporal rift that could send consciousness backward through time. The cost would be severe. His body would age. His connection to the Force would weaken. But if it worked, none of that would matter. Mender Discom, with Mender Discom, in Beyond Ire, Discom, the Sith would be destroyed before they could rise. Yoda closed his eyes and reached into the Force deeper than ever before. Time itself bent around him. Reality screamed. Pain unlike anything he'd ever felt tore through his ancient body. And then, nothing. When Yoda opened his eyes, the ruins of Ossus were gone. He stood on a battlefield littered with corpses, Jedi and Sith alike, thousands of them, dead from a war that had raged for generations. Ruusan, 1,000 years in the past. The 7th Battle of Ruusan had just ended. The Sith Brotherhood of Darkness had been destroyed by Lord Hoth's thought bomb, a weapon so terrible it had killed every Force sensitive on the battlefield, both light and dark. Almost every Force sensitive. Yoda sensed a presence nearby. Powerful, dark, calculating. He turned and saw him. Darth Bane, the sole surviving Sith Lord, standing among the ruins, watching the aftermath of destruction. Bane hadn't participated in the final battle. He had stayed back, waiting, planning. This was the moment, the exact point in history where Bane would create the rule of two, master and apprentice, hiding in shadows for 1,000 years, waiting to destroy the Jedi. But not in this timeline. Yoda ignited his green lightsaber, its hum cutting through the silence of death. Darth Bane turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Who are you?" Bane demanded. "Your end," Yoda replied. The battle for the future had begun. Darth Bane's body lay cold on the battlefield of Ruusan. Yoda stood over the fallen Sith Lord, but victory felt hollow. Through the Force, he sensed dark presences scattered across the galaxy. Apprentices Bane had already begun training. Hidden Sith sanctuaries, ancient knowledge waiting to corrupt future generations. Killing Bane had been necessary, but it wasn't enough. The source I must destroy, Yoda realized. Korriban, the ancient Sith homeworld, the birthplace of the DarkSide's philosophy. For thousands of years, Sith Lords had trained there, building temples and academies filled with forbidden holocrons and DarkSide artifacts. As long as Korriban stood, the Sith could always return. Yoda traveled to the Red Desert world, his small stature and force masking allowing him to move undetected. The Valley of the Dark Lords stretched before him, massive tombs of ancient Sith, their dark side energy pulsing like a malignant heartbeat. The Sith Academy rose from the cliffs, a fortress of black stone and crimson banners. Inside, dozens of DarkSide practitioners trained not the Brotherhood of Darkness, but remnants of older Sith traditions. Acolytes studying ancient texts, warriors practicing forbidden techniques, alchemists creating DarkSide abominations. Yoda moved through the shadows, unseen, observing their corruption. In the deepest chamber, he found what he was looking for, the great library of the Sith. Thousands of holocrons lined the walls, each containing the knowledge of dead Sith Lords. Darth Revan, Darth Nihilus, Exar Kun, Naga Sato, all the darkness that had ever plagued the galaxy, preserved in crystalline form. "And this I will," Yoda whispered. He raised his hands, channeling the Force. Not the destructive power of the dark side, but the purifying energy of the light. The holocrons began to crack, their dark essence screaming as it was torn apart. Alarms blared. Sith acolytes rushed toward the library, sensing the disturbance. Yoda ignited his lightsaber, green light cutting through the crimson darkness. Dozens of Sith surrounded him, hatred burning in their eyes. "Kill the intruder," their leader commanded. Yoda stood alone against an army of darkness. But he had faced worse odds before, and this time he would not fail. The Sith Academy burned. Yoda stood among the flames, holocrons destroyed, dark artifacts shattered. Dozens of Sith acolytes lay defeated around him. The ancient knowledge that had corrupted generations was finally ash. "Finished. It is," Yoda said, exhaustion weighing on him. "Is it?" The voice came from the shadows. Darth Bane stepped into the firelight, his massive form encased in Orbalisk's living Sith armor that had protected him from Yoda's killing blow on Ruusan. The creatures covered his body like a second skin, feeding on DarkSide energy, making him nearly invulnerable. "You," Yoda said, raising his lightsaber. "Survived. You did. Did you really think it would be that easy?" Bane's voice was cold, measured. "I've studied the Sith for decades. I know every failure, every weakness that led to their destruction. The Brotherhood of Darkness was pathetic. Too many lords, too much infighting. That's why I let them die." Yoda circled carefully. "The rule of two. Create it You planned to. Planned? Bane laughed. I've already begun. My apprentice is hidden, learning, growing stronger. When I fall, she will find another, and that apprentice will find another. Each generation more powerful, more cunning than the last. Stop you, I will. You can't stop an idea, Master Yoda. Bane ignited his red lightsaber. You've destroyed books and temples, but the Sith philosophy lives in me, in my apprentice, and through us, it will survive for 1,000 years, hidden in shadows, manipulating the Republic, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Yoda felt the weight of Bane's words. This wasn't just about defeating one Sith Lord. It was about erasing an ideology that had survived for millennia. Then erase you all, I must, Yoda said grimly. The duel began, green and red blades clashing among burning ruins. Bane was powerful, brutal, armored by DarkSide creatures that made him nearly unstoppable. But Yoda was 900 years of Jedi mastery incarnate. The fight raged through the night. And when dawn broke over Korriban, only one of them remained standing. But the consequences of this victory would be far darker than Yoda could possibly imagine. Darth Bane was dead. Yoda stood over the Sith Lord's body, obelisks crumbling to dust. It had taken everything, every technique, every ounce of Force mastery, but he had won. Over the following months, Yoda hunted down Bane's apprentice and every other DarkSide practitioner he could find. He destroyed hidden Sith temples, burned ancient texts, and ensured no trace of organized Sith knowledge remained. The Sith were extinct. Finally, weakened and aged beyond his years from the temporal strain, Yoda performed the ritual one last time. Reality bent, time screamed, and he was pulled forward, back to his own era. When Yoda opened his eyes, he was on Dagobah once more, but something was wrong. The Force felt different, imbalanced, not corrupted by darkness, but stifled by overwhelming, oppressive light. Yoda reached out through the Force, searching for familiar presences. The Jedi Order still existed. The Republic still stood, but their nature had changed fundamentally. He accessed the galaxy's holonet, and horror filled him. The Jedi had become enforcers, dictators, tyrants. Without the Sith to challenge them, without the constant threat of darkness to keep them humble, the Jedi Order had slowly grown arrogant over the centuries. They had declared themselves the ultimate authority on what was right and wrong. Jedi Inquisitors hunted down anyone who practiced the Force differently. Planets that refused Jedi governance were blockaded until they submitted. Force-sensitive children were taken from families without consent, not out of protection, but out of control. The Republic was still democratic in name, but the Jedi Council held true power. Senators who opposed them mysteriously died or disappeared. Yoda saw footage of Jedi executing civilians for potential DarkSide corruption. He saw temples built on slave labor. He saw everything the Jedi had once stood against, now committed in the name of eternal light. "What have I done?" Yoda whispered, his heart shattering. He had destroyed the Sith, but in doing so, he had created something worse. A galaxy ruled by Jedi, who believed they were incapable of evil. And the dark side, with no outlet, festered within the Order itself, unchecked, unrecognized, unstoppable. Yoda's ship descended toward Coruscant. The city planet looked the same on the surface, towering skyscrapers, endless traffic, the galactic capital in all its glory. But through the Force, Yoda felt the oppression, fear, everywhere. Not the chaotic fear of Sith rule, but the suffocating fear of absolute certainty. The Jedi Temple dominated the skyline, larger than Yoda remembered. Banners proclaiming eternal light hung from every tower. Yoda landed in the lower levels, disguising himself through the Force. He walked the streets, listening, observing. My daughter was taken. A mother sobbed to a friend. The Jedi said she showed Force sensitivity. I'll never see her again. At least she'll serve the greater good, her friend replied hollowly. The Jedi know what's best. Yoda's heart ached. This was forced recruitment, kidnapping dressed as salvation. He saw public executions of DarkSide sympathizers, people who had questioned Jedi authority. The executioners were Jedi Inquisitors, their faces cold and certain. One of them looked familiar. A descendant of Mace Windu, perhaps. The same stern features, but twisted by self-righteousness into something cruel. Yoda made his way to the temple, slipping past guards through the Force. The council chamber was in session. Inside, he saw them Jedi Masters, whose names he didn't recognize, but whose presence radiated absolute conviction, no doubt, no humility, no understanding that they could ever be wrong. The Outer Rim Rebellion must be crushed, one master declared. They refuse to accept our guidance. We'll blockade their systems until they submit. What of the civilians? Another asked. Acceptable losses. The greater good demands sacrifice. Yoda had heard those words before, from Sith lords justifying atrocities. He understood now. The dark side hadn't disappeared when he destroyed the Sith. It had simply been absorbed into the Jedi Order, disguised as righteousness, unchallenged, because there was no external darkness to reflect their internal corruption. Balance wasn't about destroying one side. It was about both sides existing, keeping each other in check. He had broken the Force itself. And now, he would have to fix it, even if it meant restoring the very enemy he had destroyed. The Jedi Council surrounded Yoda in the chamber. Who are you? The lead master demanded. A human woman with cold, certain eyes. You hide your presence through the Force. That alone marks you as suspicious. Yoda dropped his disguise, revealing himself. The council gasped. They recognized him from ancient records, Grand Master Yoda, a legend from 1,000 years ago. Impossible, one whispered. He's been dead for centuries. Time travel, Yoda said simply. Used forbidden techniques. I did, to destroy the Sith before they could rise. The council exchanged glances, not of wonder, but of judgment. You tampered with time itself? The lead master said. Such arrogance, such recklessness. Arrogance? Yoda's voice rose. Look at what you have become. Tyrants in the name of light. Executioners who believe themselves righteous. We bring order, she replied coldly. Peace through certainty. The galaxy needs our guidance. The galaxy needs freedom, Yoda countered. Learned this. The Jedi of my time did through fighting the Sith. Humility, we gained. Understanding that fallible, we were. But you, opposition, you have never faced. Challenged, you have never been. And so corrupt, you have become. We are incorruptible, another master said. We serve the light side. We cannot fall. And there it was, the fatal flaw. They genuinely believed they were incapable of evil. Without the Sith to show them the dark side's seduction, without the constant reminder that anyone could fall, they had lost all self-awareness. The Sith were necessary, Yoda said, the words bitter but true. Balance, they provided. A reflection of what we could become. Destroyed them, I did, and destroyed the Jedi in the process. Heresy, the lead master declared. Arrest him. He speaks sedition. Jedi surrounded Yoda with lightsabers ignited blue and green blades, all pointed at him. A mistake I made, Yoda said quietly. But fix it. I will. He reached into his robes and pulled out the temporal holocron, the only artifact that had survived his journey through time. Undo this. I must. The council attacked. But Yoda was already activating the ritual. One more journey through time. To set things right. Reality shattered around Yoda as he traveled through time, one final time. The temporal holocron crumbled to dust in his hands, its power exhausted, its forbidden knowledge spent. This would be his last journey, his last chance to fix what he had broken. When the world solidified, he stood on Ruusan once more. Darth Bane knelt among the corpses of the seventh battle, contemplating the rule of two, the exact moment Yoda had first arrived to stop him. But this time, Yoda did not ignite his lightsaber. He watched from the shadows as Bane rose, his plan crystallizing. Master and apprentice, hidden in darkness, waiting 1,000 years for revenge. Every fiber of Yoda's being screamed to stop him, to prevent the suffering that would come. Palpatine's rise, the Clone Wars, Order 66, Anakin's fall, the Empire. But he had seen the alternative, a galaxy where unchallenged light became tyranny, where the Jedi, believing themselves incapable of corruption, became the very evil they once opposed. Balance, Yoda whispered to himself. Not light alone, not dark alone. Both there must be. The Sith would hide for 1,000 years. They would manipulate, scheme, and eventually strike. The Jedi would fall. Anakin would become Vader. Billions would suffer. But from that suffering would come Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, the rebellion, and ultimately, balance restored not through the elimination of darkness, but through understanding that both light and dark exist within all beings. Yoda turned away from Bane, letting the Sith Lord escape into history. The timeline settled back into its proper shape. The paradox unraveled, and Yoda felt himself being pulled forward, back to his own time, back to Dagobah. When he opened his eyes, he was in his hut once more. The Empire still reigned. Luke Skywalker was still out there, training. Hope remained. Failed. I thought I had, Yoda said to the darkness, but learned the truth. I did. Not to destroy darkness, but to understand it, accept it, balance it. He closed his eyes, at peace at last. The Force required struggle, and through that struggle, true balance would be found. Not by him, but by the next generation, as it was always meant to be.